Can you hear me? If you can hear me, please type something, type a W in the chat. You can hear me. If there's anyone live, is there anyone? Nice, nice. I see you, Maestro. I see you. Anyway, if you can hear me correctly, welcome to my live stream show, where today I want us to talk about a few things, know each other and all that. Currently see that I only have 2 viewers, but for those that are also about to come in, I mean, everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome. Maestro, I see you. See that we have 3 people on the chat. Okay. Okay, I see that you've already gotten to I see that Maestro is already starting with the questions about the topic that I want us to discuss today, which is the Mirar drivers, or the fastest, or the flying cars in Africa. See that already you have questions coming in. Where our main topic today, of course, I'm going to be talking about that. The fastest drivers, the flying cars in Africa, and what they are all about, and other topics, So why do these drivers need to drive so fast? Okay. Yeah, if we're talking about the fastest or flying cars in Africa, of course, the drivers drive fast because here in Africa we don't believe in refrigeration trucks. We believe in delivering goods on time. If it's even if it's fruits, from fruits, any perishable goods, especially agricultural goods, we don't believe in refrigeration trucks. We believe in driving those things fast, taking them to their destination as fast as possible, and that's why most drivers here drive their cars very fast. You know, because because the goods has to be, because we want everything to be fresh as they were when when they came from the farm. That's one of the main drives. That's one of the main things that drives these drivers to drive so fast when it comes to delivering their goods. Yeah. And I'd also like us to check out a video. Let me also like us check out a video. Okay, just a minute. So when it comes to the flying trucks of Africa, there are a couple of things. And like they were first discovered by this big networking company called Citizen, that did a documentary about them. Let me share my screen. Can you hear my screen?
Breakneck speeds. Road.
If you can hear my screen, type a W in the chat. Nice. So he okay. So this video is basically about the Mirar drivers and why everything is driven so fast. This video basically tells us about the cart drivers and what happens during the deliveries, and why these things are delivered so fast. Yeah, because I believe that when it comes to pickup trucks in Africa, pickup trucks are the fastest vehicles in the country. And that's why in this video you can see how this mirror, or how this it's actually called cart. It's a drug, and this drug is it's a stimulant. If anyone of you had if you've ever tasted it, it's quite a stimulant. It's very crazy. Here when I used to be, when I was in my youth, we used to eat this thing like crazy. So that's why it's quite normal here. It's quite normal, and to think of how this thing is delivered, sometimes it's quite unfathomable. It's quite unbelievable because they are driven so fast. And the funny thing is that when this cart is driven from the farms to the towns or where their consumers are, it said that if you use refrigeration trucks, then then the steam, it has the steam, so that's why refrigeration trucks are never considered. Okay, I see Maru on the chat is asking, ban the product if they can't respect road rules. The product can't be banned because it drives the African economy, drives especially in East Africa. The product can't be banned because without it, the economy. Yeah, it's very legal. It's very legal, and with the level of corruption, the level of corruption, everything in Africa works with corruption, and if it can be bought using corruption, then it's very very legal. And that's why you see these cars moving so fast. It's because they've paid the road officers and all that. They've paid the corruption, and that's why the proboxes and the hiluxes, the pickups are driven at quite astonishing speeds. It's because of corruption. Here in Africa, corruption is the biggest. It's the biggest factor. It's the biggest factor, but it is what it is. We have to live with it the way it is, right? If ban the product if you can't use it, can't be banned. It can't be banned because it's heavily used. I think it's too late. So we've already gotten used to this thing. We've already gotten used to it, so it can't be banned. Like in this video,
They're known
you see
as
the way they
lorries.
carry. You see the way. So you see the way they carry a lot of. You see the way the cars are overloaded. So it's yani. That's why it can't be banned, because the way it's overloaded. You can just imagine it's driving an economy, and that's why these trucks are heavily overloaded when it comes to delivering the cart and all that. So yeah, that's one of the main issues. It can't be banned. I don't think it will ever be banned. I see Maestro asking, what is cart and why is it so valuable? Cart basically is a let me search for cart here. Let me show you. So as you can see, cart is basically this plant here. This plant, yeah. Cart is basically this plant that you see here, and this plant is a stimulant. I know that many of you may not be aware that there is a plant that is a stimulant that is eaten directly. Like the way goats chew on grass, or the way cows chew on plants. That's how cart is consumed. It's consumed raw. And sometimes people use some, we call it like shuksha, something to accompany it to make it a bit delicious. People use some things like big gums or even groundnuts, to make them, at least to make them taste, to make them experience better. And that's why I don't support this drug. I think a lot of youths in Africa, and also the road accidents, don't get me started with the road accidents. This drug has caused havoc in our roads, and not only havoc, but it's also caused accidents, and also the youth consuming it. I would say it's almost a cursed drug. It's a cursed drug, but if it drives the economy, who cares? And if the drivers and the farmers are paying the corruption money, then who cares? At the end of the day, money talks. Are you the are you there? Are there similar transport methods in other parts of the world? Yes, they are. They are. It's not just pickup trucks. There are also the trucks that we call, lorries. I don't know what you call it in your language, but you have lorries, which are, these big. They're almost like trailers. So we have lorries that also transport the cart. So it's not just proboxes, and pickups. We also have lorries, which usually transport them from very long distances. You can find one traveling from let's say from Kenya to Somalia, or sometimes even from Kenya to Ethiopia. So it's not just proboxes and pickups. We also have those big cars. Let's get back to the video.
At bullet-like speeds, throwing caution to the wind. In fact, to some, they are the wind. We are aboard one of the cars heading to the Mirar loading zone.
Automatic cars, because I tell you have to believe me when I tell you this, most of these cars that go fast in Africa, they are manual. So what do you think about manual cars versus automatic cars? I know it's a debate that has been there for the longest time, but when it comes to fast cars, for me, I know it's manual cars always win the debate. And that's why when it comes even to transporting this car with proboxes and whatever vehicle it is, it's always a manual vehicle. That's the vehicle of choice for most of these drivers who drive crazy vehicles.
Has granted us a ride, an opportunity to get the feel, and we experience the speed firsthand and the urgency involved. He was rushing here to Maua, where we find other cars being loaded.
Yeah, so basically this is the process of getting those products, from the farms and all that. Yeah, so yeah, and that they have to be transported very, very quickly, right? So this is the process of this is what they go through, when it comes to transporting the cat very fast. They have to be taken from the farm fresh. And the funny thing is that when you go to these regions, you'll never find a refrigeration truck. In fact, the people who use refrigeration trucks in this area, they are frowned upon, because it's kind of a waste of money. Because why would you need a refrigeration truck while you can just use a pickup truck to drive it very fast? I also have Maestro. Your accent is ridiculously funny. Yeah, it's funny because I'm from Kenya, right? I'm from Kenya. Yeah, my country of origin is Kenya, right? And basically here we don't have an accent like Nigerians. You can hear the Nigerians with their with their Oga accent. Here in Kenya we basically don't have those accents, because Kiswahili or Swahili is our it's the main language that we use here. How was your experience with cat, bro? Don't ask about this product, bro. It's crazy addictive. It's crazy addictive, but it's at the end of the day, it's a legal product. It's used all over East Africa. Yeah, I'm seeing Emily Dominic. Greetings, greetings, Emily. How are you? Welcome to the chat. Anyway, so I was talking about these pickups.
It's around 10 a.m., and one by one they load the car from motorbikes to proboxes, all bringing in the precious Mirar. Meanwhile, the heap is barging with time.
Is there anyone in the chat who's ever had experience with this thing called cat? If you've ever had an experience with it, please type something. How fast do these trucks go? These trucks go up to 130 kilometers per hour. 130 kilometers per hour on a pedestrian road. In Africa our roads are very bad. So a car that is going for 130 kilometers per hour on an African road, you can imagine the risk, right? Because imagine at 130 kilometers per hour and you hit a pothole. I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy. And the roads are the roads here are not well maintained, because at the end of the day, we're in Africa. Yeah, I'm seeing Maestro saying that he's also had it and it was quite an experience. Yeah, I know. I see Maestro is someone. I think Maestro is someone we are from the same region. I think he's also from Kenya or from East Africa, where this thing is heavily consumed. So yeah, so that's it about these cars. That's it about these cars that move fast. They move extremely fast. Risking the lives of people and all that. That's it. I mean, this is it about it. These are the cars and these are the vehicles. And talking about speedy cars, we also have those proboxes. It's not just it's not and a probox is a sedan. Let me show you. Probox. Mhm. We also have these proboxes. These cars are also driven like they're being driven like by mad people. So it's not just the pickup trucks. We also have this basically a family sedan, right? It's basically a family sedan, and they are also like competitors when it comes to transporting cars, you know. So it's not just pickups. We also have this. Let me see if I had a video here. Yes, you can see how they are overloaded. Like this is one. Uh, Begin again. Having network issues. Just look at how that car is overloaded, man. It's extremely overloaded, but it's still moving. The driver, there's no space. Even the passenger seat at the back, it's full of bags. And don't be surprised when that car hits 200 kilo. It hits maybe 100 per. Just look at this. It's crazy, man. It's going over a bump and it's like it's flying on the road. And that's the reality. That's the reality of where I'm from. You know, that's the reality. You know, I wouldn't imagine driving on that car. You know, I mean, it will be crazy. But those are that's basically the concept of the Mira vehicle, and that's basically that's basically it. That's all it is when it comes to this vehicle. That's why they are driven extremely fast. You know, it's because they have to keep the product fresh, and they don't like they don't like using refrigerated trucks. Anyway, I'd also like to talk about me. Do you have any question about me? Have you ever wondered about me? Any questions about Afrikleo? You can also channel it to the chat. If you have any question or any question about any video that you've ever seen me or any video that you've ever seen on the channel, you can ask. So I'm here for the questions. Yeah, I just want us, to get to know each other, to communicate more. Yeah. Yeah, see, Maestro is very active. Have you ever come close? Have you ever been in close contact with a driver? I wouldn't say I have, but since I was a consumer of this thing, I guess that qualifies as me being close to one of the drivers. What kind of drivers take these jobs? The kind of drivers that the drivers that take these jobs are the kind of drivers who consume drugs, but like for you to drive this fast, you also have to be under the influence, right? And you'd find that most drivers, you don't be surprised that most drivers, when they are driving, they are also chewing the same cut. So they're chewing the product that they're transporting. It's something very normal, and that's what it takes for you to be such a driver. You have to be under the influence because you are risking your life and you're risking other people's lives. So you have to be under the influence. That's what it takes to drive these cars, and I mean, the fast cars. I don't mean these other cars. I've done videos about these wrecked cars in Africa, cars that are very cars in Africa, and what it takes to own one. Here in Africa, when a car dies, we don't accept death when it comes to vehicles. When it comes to vehicles, we want to use it. If it dies, we find a way to resurrect it. And I don't know if it's something to be sad about, or if it's something to be to be to praise, but we don't accept cars to die. That's why you can find a 70-year-old car on the road. It's moving, and if it has any failures, or if anything goes wrong with it, the mechanics are always there. And I don't think that there are creative people in Africa like mechanics. African mechanics, man, they are very, very creative. They're very creative because they can change it, they can fix anything. It doesn't matter, they can fix anything. Yeah, the things the road were built for them alone. Disgusting. Yeah, I guess you are referring to the fast cars in Africa, the ones that transport cars. yeah, I mean, the roads are basically made for them. People who drive fast, obviously, that's what they assume, that the roads are for them. And when in Africa, in Africa, when basically you have the money, when you have the money to pay off the cops, the roads basically belong to you. There's no one who can ever question you. If you have the money and if you're willing to pay the cops the corruption money, then you're the king. You're the king. I'm seeing Mary Wanja. Hello, Afrikleo. Hi, Mary. Welcome to the chat. I mean, welcome. If you have any question about any video that you've seen from the channel or any video in general about Africa or what's happening in Africa, feel free. Yeah, I'm seeing Maestro. This the steam merchants. The steam matches the speed. Yeah, it's basically like a drunken driver driving. Obviously, they'll drive very fast. But here we say that there's no, if there's a driver that is very careful on the road, it's someone who's drunk. I don't know if it's true for you or from where you're from, that drunk people are the, like they are very cautious. I don't know if it applies to everyone, but here that's what we say, that drunken drivers are actually the best drivers. Although, don't drive and drink. Don't drink and drive. Don't. We don't condone that here. Anyway, let's talk about these scrappy vehicles from Africa. As I was telling you, if there's any creative industry or the most creative people in Africa, it's mechanics. Basically, you can go with a wrecked car, a car that is basically scraps, like a car that's almost dead. But African mechanics always have a way to revive it. I know that Africa, we're not the ones that invented, we didn't invent the cars and all. But when it comes to our mechanics, bro, our mechanics know what they are doing. And that's why you see these cars moving so fast. It's because they've been modified. They've been modified to handle the potholes. you know like you can find a car is better. These cars are basically better than the roads. And have you seen the matatus? Have you seen the public transport, especially in Kenya? Have you seen the public transport? Have you seen those? We call them manganya. They're basically mini buses. Right? They're basically mini buses, and they're something else. Let me show you a video. Thank you so much, Emily, for the donation. Thank you so much. Let me search for matatu culture. Just look at this matatu, man. Just look at this. This is a public transport. It looks like a Ferrari. So, so can you imagine what the mechanics had to go through to make something like this? I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy engineering. It's basically crazy engineering. Like, bro, the matatu is even the bus is even twerking. Forgive my local language. We call them matatus here, or basically manganya. These things they require a lot of creativity, to make something that can park on the road. And it's public transport. It's something that is depended on. I see Paloma. Welcome, Paloma. Welcome. Brakes in case of an emergency. Yeah, that's the thing about transporting Kata. That's the thing about the fastest cars in Africa. That's the brakes, don't count on them. Don't count on brakes when it comes to driving. Don't count on them. So have welcome so much, Paloma. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the live stream. Welcome. I'm seeing Maru. They even have overspeed. They even have overspeed in bus markets. They even overspeed in bus in busy markets. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is at the end of the day. If they keep the economy moving, the government, there's no one to question them. Even the government has to follow them. That's the thing about public transport in Africa. As long as you've got the money, then you own everything. You rule. Yeah, the rules are basically made for you, right? That's basically it. It's as simple as that. If you have the money, then you have everything. Could drones or aircraft replace flying trucks? Bro, what are you talking about, bro? We are in Africa, bro. Don't ask about drones and all that. 90% of us have never seen drones, live drones here in Africa, bro. And the drones are very expensive. So maybe they could in other Western countries, but in Africa, that's basically impossible. In Western countries, drones are used. I've seen videos where drones are used for delivering food and for doing online shopping and all that, where drones are used. But when it comes to Africa, bro, we're still using bicycles, right? And sometimes we are even using black mamba bicycle. If you know black mamba, I did a video about that. We are basically using bicycles. So how do we skip from using trucks to going to using drones? That could never happen. Yeah. And what do you think about this African public transport? This matter, these private vehicles, these public vehicles are crazy. Look at this one, bro. It's modified. It's extremely modified. Like, the creativity behind this is something else. Like, is that a football player? That's a football player. Yes, I guess the bus is called 313. Hmm? Just look at that. Anyway, that's it. Okay, that's it when it comes to public transport. That's it when it comes to public transport. What's that? Yeah, and let's. I'm so sorry, guys. It's a funny thing is I had a visitor on the door. Uh, sorry about that. Where are we? I see Mary Wanja. I like your videos. Yeah, thank you so much, Mary. Thank you so much for liking our videos. Like, so what you're seeing here is it's a pro box, what we call those Mira pro boxes. They are one of the fastest vehicle here. They come second after the pickups, right? The pickup trucks. It's these pro boxes. They are very very fast, and you can see how overloaded it is, and it's moving on the highway at extreme speed. Okay. What else do we have? How will the driver see if the windscreen is painted? I think so. You're talking about this. You're talking about these matatus, these public vehicles. I mean, the driver. You can see the driver has a small space here. I think. Yeah. Like, how do you see within that small space? It's an interesting question. It's an interesting question, but I guess they have a way. I guess for you to be a matatu driver, you have to be your vision, your eye vision has to be out of this world. Like seeing through that small space. Just imagine driving that, and you can imagine that the driver is carrying a lot of people behind him. Like, lives are depending on him, right? And he's just looking, he's just using that small space. Yeah, welcome to Kenya, bro. Welcome to Kenya. Those are what we call manganya. And when it comes to music, bro, when it comes to music, these vehicles they are basically like moving discos or moving clubs. That's what these public transports are. It's like when you get into one, it's like you are getting inside a club. But what you don't have is just a drink, and if you can bring one, then you're welcome. No one will ask you. And that's the thing. That's the thing about this. And the thing is, I know as weird as it sounds, it's very fun to drive in this. It's very fun. I mean, if you've never been to Kenya, I mean, find time, find time and come and be part of this because it's very fun. These vehicles are very fun to the experience. It's very fun. Yeah, Kenya is crazy. Yeah, definitely. Kenya is very crazy. And it's not just that Kenya is crazy. Kenya also it's very creative. To make something, to make a public vehicle to look like this. I mean, it requires some kind of creativity. So I wouldn't just say that Kenyans are crazy. I'd say that they are crazy and creative at the same time. I mean, just give them credit. Just give them credit because compare this to Nigerian transport. If you see Nigerian transport, bro, those people are like living in the Stone Age. You can't compare. I think Kenya has the best public transport when it comes to transport. I think it's Kenya. Kenya has it. I mean, I think it's Kenya, right? And I want us to shift gears to. I was saying, if you have any question about any video that you've seen, or if you have any question about me or the channel, feel free to ask. Feel free to ask. Uh-huh. So yeah, so that's it about the public transport in Africa, in Africa, and also in Kenya, where we basically call them matatus. Hmm. Yeah, and I know many people wonder, like, are we crazy or do we live in the Stone Age? But that's obviously not it. It's not it. That's obviously not it at all. And when it comes to these vehicles, like in Africa, like, or where I'm from, the price of fuel is very expensive, right? You'd find that like 1 liter of petrol here is almost, $2, or if that's in dollars, it's almost like $2. That's a price for 1 liter. But we still find a way to survive. We still find a way, even if the petrol or even if the diesel is that expensive, we still have to find a way to survive because at the end of the day, we have to move from point A to point B. So no matter how much no matter how expensive the fuel is, we always find a way, we always find a way to fuel our cars, because at the end of the day, it's not many countries that are producing their own oil. Countries like Nigeria do, but they don't have the refinery. They don't refine their own fuel, and that's why even Nigeria, it's not like oil is cheap in Nigeria. And it's not like, they're not cheap, right? And that's the thing. That's the thing. I'm seeing Maestro saying here, don't compare. Don't compare what exactly? Don't compare. Don't compare public transport. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but you have to. At the end of the day, we are on the same continent. We have to compare our public transport. I mean, yeah, if I were to rate public transport in Africa, obviously Kenya will be number one, and let's say South Africa number two, because we all have, they all have like dope cars when it comes to public transport. They're not that bad, right? And that's the thing about it. There is not like, they're not that bad, so you shouldn't like judge them. You shouldn't you shouldn't like harshly judge them, because it is what it is. They try to make do with what they have, right? And that's why I always try to like credit them. I just can't criticize African inventors all the time, because at the end of the day, these people, or even when it comes to mechanics and all those, and when it comes to the creative industry, most of the people in this creative industry, they are working with scraps. They basically don't have any. They don't have much. They basically don't have much. So they're working with scraps. So you have to give them credit where you have to give them credit where credit is due, right? Just give them credit, because sometimes I try to like position myself in their shoes. If I had nothing, right, and someone asked me to build a plane, and let's say I live in the streets, what will I do? Like, where will they begin? That's why you just make a scrappy plane at the end of the day, because I mean, you have to deal what your hand is given. You have to make do of what you have. I'm seeing Maestro asking, why are you saying why are you saying Africa lacks materials? I'm not saying that. It's a fact. It's a fact that Africa, obviously Africa doesn't have, Africa most countries in Africa are third world countries, and that's why I really feel sorry for inventors, because being an inventor in a country where basically you don't have the resources, or if you want to build a plane, basically what you just have papers. Like imagine building a plane using papers. Because I once saw a helicopter that was made out of clothes. I've ever seen a helicopter made out of clothes, and the people that made those, they are adults. It's not like a child. It's not like they were made by a child. They were made by adults. Imagine making a plane using clothes. It's just sad, but it is what it is, right? It's sad, but it is what it is. I mean, that's the fact here. It's the fact, and at the end of the day, we just, that's it. That's the fact. It's a fact, and it's funny that even if Africans, we don't have the resources, we still love football. Because you can find an African, he has nothing, but he's willing to, I mean, and when I say football, I mean soccer. Africans will love soccer very much, and the funny thing is that it's a white man's sport, but you find an African with nothing, an African basically living in some shacks or in some slums, arguing with you about football. Like, bro, first of all, like, try and lift yourself up. Don't come here arguing about something about a white man's sport. Like in Africa, we basically don't do that. At its term, what's term? Mary, what are you talking about term? Anyway, so I was talking about sports in Africa. Like, Africans, they die for, like, we have people that actually commit suicide when it comes to sports. Like, I've seen people, like, commit, like, they take their own lives, like they hang themselves because of football, bro. And you're living in a shack, and it's not like your country. It's not like it was your country playing. Like, what's that? I never understood that. Like, why would you kill yourself for a sport that your country takes no part in? I've seen, like, especially Manchester. Don't even get me started. It's true, though we lack materials for. It's true, though we lack materials for, like, everything. Yeah, we lack materials for everything, but especially inventions. We lack materials for inventions, right? We lack materials for inventions, especially those people who come from poor backgrounds. It's very hard for them to make anything, especially if even the raw materials, they don't exist. If you want to make a plane, for you to find a proper engine to use on that plane, it's unless you order it from Amazon, right? You can't just go and buy it from, a shop or a spare part shop. Here you can't find a plane engine. You have to order it, because at the end of the day, we didn't invent these things, and I guess that's why we lack materials. That's one of the main reasons why Africa lacks materials, is because at the end of the day, we didn't invent these things. They were basically handed to us, and if something is handed to you, you have to make do. You have to make do with what you have, and that's why you see these planes, and that's why you never see an African plane actually lift off, because we don't have the proper knowledge and the proper resources to make those planes, right? That's how messed up it is. And at the end of the day, people still try to dream here. We still try to dream. I guess that's one of the main things that matters. We still try to dream, even though we don't have the resources. Africans still try. They still try to dream, because even though you don't have the resources, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't try and build that plane. You shouldn't try and build that car that you want to build for yourself, because if you can't afford that car, then why not build it? You can try and build it, because at the end of the day, you never know what will come out of it. I see Mario. The speed they used to fly Mira from Meru to Nairobi, it's evil speed. But look at the customers chewing 1 leaf per hour. It's definitely the worst drug to use. Yeah, let's get back to the video that we were going through.
Timothy will be the man behind the wheels. He is donning traditional Maasai apparel, perhaps indicative of the mission ahead of traversing several counties. 11:15 a.m., the takeoff time. And now, as you can see behind me, they're making the final preparations before this car can now leave from here to its destination, Nairobi, and our cameras will be following close by. Even before those loading
So the journey now begins. You see, the journey now begins, and it's quite sad that proboxes have never had a proper documentary like these pickups had. Okay, let's continue.
finish tying the knots, the car is in motion, and so are we. We trail the car, trying to keep to its speed. At the initial stages, it's relatively easy. But once beyond this point where it has to pay cess,
You see the way that guy handed him a ticket. That's the same way they hand corruption money to cops. So in case they are breaking any traffic rules, that's the same way they hand out corruption money. It's that easy. It's like paying for a ticket. It's like paying for an expressway.
the gap widens. Yet our driver's foot is hard on the accelerator pedal. But the Mirror car will not let us, maneuvering through corners at incredible speeds. We are now at 140 kilometers per hour.
140 kilometers per hour, right? And that's the car tailing the main vehicle. So I guess like the main vehicle is at almost 160 and you're tailing it at 140 kilometers. And remember, this is a pedestrian road. It's not like a controlled environment or anything. It's a pedestrian road, bro. 140, and you have to travel like that for almost 100 kilometers plus. And and don't even start with the potholes on these roads.
And still, the gap is significant. Meaning, the Mirror car must be doing...
Just look at the way that vehicle is overloaded, bro. Like, it's extremely overloaded. Like, what do you think? Can you drive a car like this? Chat. Can you drive a car like this? Can you drive it at that speed with this much weight on it? Can you?
160 kilometers per hour plus. But we soldier on through winding corners until we get to Makutano in Meru, where the driver decides to do this. This is said to be a shortcut to avoid traffic. It's now 11:45 a.m. and we have placed our cameras at strategic points on its route. First stop, Karatina. It was passing here at 12:56 p.m.
So basically these drivers travel from, they go for like 100 kilometers in almost 1 or 2 hours. Like, they basically apply what's on the speedometer. They go, you see, like, if it's a speedometer and it's saying you should travel for 150 kilometers per hour, they basically observe that rule. So they can go for like 100 kilometers within just 1 hour. It's crazy, but it is what it is. This is how fast these drivers move their vehicles, and I'm not joking. It's a fact. This is how they travel so fast. I mean, at lightning speed and at very unsafe roads. I mean, that's no wonder these drivers are mostly under the influence, because you can't drive like this and still be normal, with the weight, with everything. I mean, you'd have to be, abnormal in some way. I'm seeing are these tract owned by individuals or organization or organized groups? Some are owned by organizations and others by individuals, because when it comes to transporting these things, people sometimes have to come together to buy the vehicles. It's not just a one-way trip when it comes to these vehicles. So they're not just owned by one person. Most of them are owned by an organization. It's like a circle. It's like a circle, which people come together, or maybe a group, like they form a group and they buy one of these, and they try to make they try to to make sure that their money gets back to them. They try to make sure that the ROI, the return of investment, is as it's on point. So they are both owned by groups and by individuals. And yeah, and that's basically the transportation industry in Africa. It's owned by, it doesn't matter the owner at the end of the day, because the driver is under certain orders to drive the car like 400 kilometers and make sure that the product is delivered within the shortest time possible. That's what usually the drivers are ordered to do. So it doesn't really matter. They have to make sure that they keep time, right? And yeah, that they have to make sure that they keep time. And I was saying, it's not just the pickups. You also have those proboxes. And sometimes you also don't be surprised to find very scrappy cars on the road transporting this. And the most important thing is, I've not just done about I haven't just talked about this the pickups and proboxes alone. I've also talked about the lorries, the big trucks, the ones we call them mugukumi. Basically, they have 10 tires. There are also those, and they also travel at these speeds. So basically, when it comes to moving cart, there's no shortage of vehicles. They can drive any cart, any speed, and that's why these drivers are, they should just go and race in the rallies, because driving at those speeds, 130 kilometers or 140 kilometers for 100 kilometers in a Porton laden road, bro, you can be a very good rally driver, hands down. um how has Afrikleo video impacted public awareness? Most When it comes to these vehicles, especially these mirror vehicles, many people didn't know about them, and this topic is not talked about enough, like the way it's supposed to be talked about. And I guess through those videos few videos, if you've seen any of those, the public awareness, at least I tried to create some public awareness about these vehicles, about how these vehicles sometimes risk the lives of people, because hey, those speeds, a car moving at 140 kilometers, just moving 140 kilometers per hour on a pedestrian road it's very dangerous, and sometimes I don't think it's worth it. And I still don't understand why they wouldn't use refrigeration trucks. I mean, how can steam be reduced by a refrigeration truck? I mean, it doesn't make sense. And that's why they drive 100 kilometers in just 1 or 2 hours. In fact, it should be almost just an hour or an hour less. 100 kilometers. That's how fast these cars are driven. And I'd say that it's not like every country in East Africa. It's mostly done in Kenya. And Kenya, it's obviously one of the biggest economies in Africa. But I'd say that, it all it all boils down to corruption, right? And here the level of corruption is extremely high. And like I said before, with money you own the roads. So basically these drivers own the roads, because there was once a case where I know I've mentioned it in a video before, where this car can hit a pedestrian on the road and they wouldn't stop. You know what they do? They just throw a bundle of money, like bundles of notes at you. Like, let's say they hit you, they don't stop. In fact, they don't stop for nothing. They just throw money and they keep on moving. That's how this thing is important. That's how seriously these drivers are taken. What kind of fuel do flying trucks use, and how often do they refuel? Basically, they just use the normal fuel. We have flying cars that use petrol and diesel, but the main thing is that these creative African mechanics, they've modified these cars to the maximum. They make sure that the fuel efficiency is on point. They make sure that the shock absorbers, they make sure that everything is on point, so that when the cars are on the road, they won't be facing any challenges. And that's why you find cars that have these big spoilers, like you can see, like this vehicle here, you can see the spoiler. This car has been modified such that no vehicle can get on its way, no pedestrian can get on its way. And that's why they never stop. Even if they hit someone, they won't stop for nothing. They'll keep on moving, because the most important thing is for the product to keep moving. And please don't think I'm talking about something illegal. It's something very, very legal here. It's something used on the daily, something that I have used, something that my brothers have used. So yeah, and that's why I thought that it was time. It was about time that we talk about these things, because without the awareness, people never know how these things get to them. And these things are very, they are exported, especially to countries in the Middle East, countries like Saudi Arabia, countries like those Arabian countries. They consume this drug a lot. But the thing is, they don't know how these drugs get to them. They don't know the level of risk that people have to go through for them to get this drug. And the funny thing is that this drug is chewed like the way a cow chews grass. Like, how can you chew? I just don't get how people are able to chew this thing. Like, you chew it, and the funny thing is that this thing is also very bitter, right? It's very bitter, and that's why people have to use things like groundnuts to make them at least a bit chewable. But it still doesn't make sense to me why they are driven so fast. And you saying that using refrigeration trucks reduces their steam still never has never made sense to me. I mean, has it ever made sense to you, chat? If it has ever made sense to you, please leave a comment about that. What types of vehicles are used as flying trucks? The most common vehicle that is used as a flying truck is mostly the Hilux, the Toyota Hilux. Let me search for it. Sorry. Yes, you can see mostly it's the Hiluxes, the Toyota Hiluxes, those pickups. They're the ones that are mostly used. They are like the number one. In fact, a Hilux is very expensive in Kenya. There's no vehicle as expensive as a Hilux. It's very, very expensive. These vehicles, they are highly valued. They are very because at the end of the day, they do tend to return the money. The return over investment for these vehicles is very high, because if you have a Toyota Hilux, especially the new model ones, the demand is there. The demand for work is very there. So these vehicles are highly valued here in Africa, and that's why you see these old trucks. That's why you see that pickup trucks, they never die in Africa. They never die because there's always demand for them. There's always they can never if you have a pickup truck, you're basically a rich man, right? If you have a pickup truck in Africa, bro, your life is set. If you have a pickup truck, you can get the finest women, you can get yani, you basically have everything. You basically have everything, and that's why owning a pickup truck here, bro, it's top notch. And also the other vehicles that follow this, remember, are these proboxes. If you also have a probox here in Africa, you're also set for life, because proboxes are considered to be they're considered to be almost like the pickups. The proboxes are set on the same level with the pickup. So having a probox and owning a pickup at the same time, it's a gem. And so a probox and a pickup are the vehicles that are they're the kings of the road, and they're the kings of speed. They don't follow any traffic laws, because you know what, they get the money. So basically they own the roads. So the pickup truck and the probox are the kings of the road, full stop. I don't think there's anything better. I don't think there's any vehicle that is better than these two vehicles when it comes to flying vehicles. Basically, the flying vehicles is the pickup truck and the probox. And the funny thing is that I've seen them delivering these things, and when they're delivering them, they throw them, like, let's say that there's a video that I did. When they're delivering them, they throw the cart outside the window using sacks. Like, it's like the sacks are also flying. Like, they throw the sacks outside their windows. It's like a delivery truck, but it doesn't stop to deliver. They just throw it. So imagine, it's like it's like, maybe let's say you order something from maybe Amazon or from an online shop, but instead of the driver coming to you and delivering it in peace, they throw it. They throw it outside the window. That's how these people deliver their product. I'm seeing Peter Koech. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the live stream. Are flying truck drivers trained, or do they learn on the job? I obviously they learn on the job, but first they begin as what we call here as makangas. A makanga is basically a co-driver, right? And I've noticed that many vehicles, maybe especially in the Western countries, when it comes to these transit vehicles, they don't have co-drivers. But here in Africa, co-drivers are everywhere. Co-drivers are everywhere. I'm seeing John Vic. Hi, I'm watching from Philippines. Yeah, welcome, John Vic. Yeah. So where was I? I was telling that for you to become a driver of these flying trucks, first of all you have to go through thorough training, and by thorough training I mean first of all you have to be a co-driver for a period of almost 6 years. 6 years is the minimum. You'll have to be a co-driver for 6 years for you to be given your own vehicle. That's the minimal requirement. You don't even have to have a license, but obviously when you're on the road, you get the experience. And what's most important to these vehicles, or what's most important to this sector or these flying vehicles, is the experience. And that's why we say here that gari si mwenyewe, gari ni dereva. What that basically means is that the vehicle is basically not the vehicle. The vehicle is the driver. The driver is the vehicle. Because you can find a vehicle that is very slow, and that vehicle you can't compete with that vehicle, because if the driver knows what he's doing, if he knows how to play with the gears, you can't defeat that driver. And that is something that is we take it to heart. We take it to heart very much. We believe that the vehicle is the driver. So yeah, I'm saying that what happens if a driver is caught by authorities? What cut is banned? What happens if a driver is caught by authorities? What cut is banned area? What does that mean? But if a driver is caught, they basically just pay the bribe, right? You just pay the bribe and you're set. Everything is okay as long as you pay the bribe. That's the most important thing to these people. And I'm so sorry I'm saying it bluntly, but it's a fact. There's nothing to hide here. What I'm just saying is something it happens on the daily. Paying bribe, say in Africa, is like drinking water. That's how normal it is. Because me being a driver, all that the main times that I've been on the road, every time a traffic police stops you, the most important thing for you to do is you need to have a note. Let's say maybe you just need to have, like, maybe let's say 100 bob, or maybe just a note. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Just make sure you have something on your hand, and it doesn't matter what law you've broken. But if you have that money, everything will be okay. You even don't need a driver's license. Let's say if a cop comes to you and they ask, yeah, where's a driving license? If you just give them the handout, bro, everything is okay. Everything is normal. And that's how I know it sounds ironic, but it's a fact. It's truly what it is. Here with money, you don't even need a driver's license. You just need make sure you have the handouts. You always need those. That's the rule about African roads. You need the handouts. Without those, you can't survive. Okay, I'm seeing kids safe online. They cut their accelerator cable by 1.5 centimeters and clutch cable by 1.8 centimeters. Okay. Reverse gear is exchanged with Nissan D15 cog, 18 teeth to 14 teeth. They fit perfectly. Regular servicing and a good driver. Kids safe online. It seems that you're very familiar with these vehicles, and I guess you're right. You're basically trying to drive my point when I'm saying that these vehicles are heavily modified. The modification is out of this world. That's why. And when I say that the modifications out of this world, I don't mean that they add those many extra things they buy. They basically just use what they have. which is basically welding and cutting steel to make sure they are as short as possible, and to make sure things like springs, they are as responsive as possible. uh Fully loaded Mirakaka is worth 12 million. Okay. So the boss always tells the driver, fish the car I bought yesterday, but Mira must reach the airport before the plane leaves. Okay. We also have John Vick. The thought of me, first of all, being the thought of me, first of all, just being a co-driver for a minimum of 5 years, that becomes very hard, because you can't expect me to just go on the road and sit there for 5 years, just waiting to learn the experience, for the end of the day for me to be given that vehicle. And sometimes if you're not, and sometimes the driver also has to judge you. It's like a test. It's like you go through a test that is a 5 year test, and at the end of the day your driver has to bring the results. And if you're not worth it, if the driver says that yes, you're my co-driver, but I don't think you're ready, then you're not ready. So you can find that you've wasted 5 years on the road being a co-driver to these drivers, and at the end of the day you're not given a vehicle. That's why I've never considered being one, because at the end of the day you can be on the road for 5 years and still not be given a vehicle. But the Mira customers don't chew like they are in a hurry. So why risk your life? It's because of the steam, it's because of what the drug gives you. They don't care. So if the product has come to you that fast, so why should you consume it as fast as the way it reached you? People will just take it slow because it's enjoyable, it's going through the road, and the most important thing is that it's gotten to you as fresh as it was in the farm. I guess that's one of the main I guess that's one of the main things about these vehicles, because the product is as fresh as it was when it came from the farms. And that's what these drivers have to make sure. That's why refrigeration trucks are burnt. That's why refrigeration trucks are the last thing when it comes to these farmers, right? That's why these people chew it very slowly, because it's fresh. The product is fresh. It's been driven at crazy speed, because it's like basically you're chewing something from the farm, right? It's something that you're chewing, that something that didn't go through refrigeration or anything. It's something basically you're chewing it, like it's like you are there on the farm chewing it. And that's why the consumers, they consume it very, very slowly. Samuel Kimunya, I'm tuned in from Kabete. Welcome Samuel, welcome from Kabete. How's Kabete? Okay, I'm also seeing Maestro. Is there music or fashion linked to flying trucks culture? Linked to the flying trucks culture? Basically, no. It's no, it's a no, because at the end of the day, these vehicles, as much as I like to talk about them, they're not that glorified by people, because at the end of the day, they are risking people's lives, right? Driving a car at 140 kilometers per hour on a pedestrian road, especially a road that is filled with potholes, at 140 kilometers to 160 kilometers per hour, it's not safe. It's risking other people's lives. So basically there's no match to celebrate it, right? So there's no fashion, there's no music, to celebrate this, because it's not glorified at all. It's something that is frowned upon. But at the end of the day, they have the money, and here money talks, right? Money talks, and it doesn't matter. As long as you have the money, that's all that matters. That's the number one, and that's the number one and last rule. Okay. I've driven in many countries around the world, and found that Kenyan drivers tend to drive as if they have the best insurance in the world, and that they have 9 lives. Yeah, welcome to Africa. Welcome to Africa, where traffic laws don't exist. Basically, here, in fact, when it comes to traffic lights are as rare as finding a job, right? That's how rare traffic lights are here. So basically, that's why these drivers drive they basically own the roads. And African drivers are very, very careless. In fact, if you've never been to Africa, I just pray that you don't meet. In fact, road rage. when it comes to road rage in Africa, road rage is something else here, because people kill each other. People kill each other for road rage, and obviously it's not, you can't see that, it's not something that is documented, so you don't see it very often on the internet. When it comes to road rage in the West, it's very documented, there are videos. But road rage in Africa, people kill each other, bro. They kill each other, they throw stones at each other. Road rage in Africa is something that you don't want to experience, and that's why African drivers are very careless, because they know at the end of the day, if you maybe, let's say, you scratch their car, they'll hit you with stones. They'll do a lot of things. So road rage in Africa is very bad, and that's why African drivers drive like they own the road, and like they have 9 lives, because, bro, it's like it's the wild. It's sad truth is that the only growing benefit from all this, sad truth is that only the growers benefit from all the millions of shillings, while the chewers are jobless and beggars. Yeah, that's the truth. That's the hard truth. As much as these drivers drive carelessly, they're not fortunate that they don't really, they don't really have so much to benefit compared to the farmers. The farmers are the ones they're the kings, because they're the ones with the corruption money. They're the ones that facilitate everything, right? It's yeah. So basically, these drivers don't really benefit from anything. The ones that benefit are the farmers. They're the people that have sent them, And the thing is, most of these farmers are also politicians, right? And them being politicians, they basically control the laws, because you can't find, let's say you can't find this car, and let's say you can't find this car, and this car was owned, and it's basically owned by a politician. You can't, because the politician is the legislature. Okay, if you go 5 miles an hour over here, if you go 5 miles an hour over here, the speed limit, if you go 5 miles an hour over here, over the speed limit here, you get pulled over and get a ticket. Bro, that doesn't exist here. Basically, here we don't have those speed guns. They're very rare. It's very rare to find a road with a speed gun. So basically, it's very hard for you to be caught, like, at you, because you're over speeding. And if you're over speeding and you have something on your pocket, if you have some spare change, you just give it to the cops, because corruption rules. So who needs a speeding gun if basically you'll pay off the cops? Exactly. They're not needed. And that's why even the governments here, they don't really care about that. They don't really care about speed limits and all that. They just tell you that just be careful. If you go over someone, just be careful. But speed guns don't exist here. That's why people here drive carelessly. In fact, if you have a very big car, let's say if you have Prados and all those, those Toyota Prados and those Toyota Land Cruisers, those drivers basically own the roads, because they drive at extreme speeds. And at the end of the day, they know that they want to be charged. So it's like, basically, if you have a sports car or a car that moves very fast in Africa, you will enjoy. It will basically be a heaven for you. If you have something like a Lamborghini Urus, and you bring it here to Africa, bro, you can drive at 200 kilometers per hour, and no one will ask you a thing. No one. That's the fact. Yeah. I have another question. Are bribes a normal part of the journey? Bribes are always a normal part of the journey. In fact, if you're coming to Africa and you're driving on the roads, make sure you have some spare change with you. Always. That's one of the number one rules. In fact, that's the number one rule. Always have some spare change with you, because if you know that you're breaking any law, let's say if you know that you're overspeeding, let's say that you know that your car is overloaded, always make sure that you have a spare change. And even, let's say, in fact you can break every law, right? But as long as you have some spare change, or as long as you have the corruption money, it doesn't matter. That's the most important thing. It doesn't matter. And that's why road accidents in Africa are very, very common, and they are one of the leading causes of death. Road accidents are one of the leading causes of death because yeah, there's no one there's no one to enforce the law. So people die. People die very easily because of road, because of road carelessness. But it is what it is at the end of the day. I'm watching from US, driving those dangerous speeds and in that reckless manner will land a driver in jail, having his license suspended and the vehicle impounded. They don't play here, lol. But we play here. Here they play. They play the game and they play it perfectly. In fact, if a person likes breaking the law, Africa is basically a heaven for people who love breaking the law. It's a heaven, man. That's why you see these drivers over speeding. That's why you see public vehicles being pimped to the maximum. These people know basically that they are breaking the law, but they don't care. That's why I'm telling you, for people who like breaking the law, Africa is a heaven for them. It's paradise. If you know that you love overspeeding, if you know that you love all that illegal stuff on the road, just come to Africa. And I think that if Africa ever found itself at the same level with Japan, in Japan we see these street races. Africa would gladly do that. In fact, the police would support that. But it's too bad. It's too bad that we don't have cars that we've invented ourselves. So yeah. So we just have to break the laws on the normal roads using basic cars like a pickup, like a probox, which is basically a family sedan, right? Yeah. And when it comes to basically every level of anything in Africa, it can be paid off using bribes. It doesn't matter. Bribes exist. Any bribes are everywhere. Bribes are basically, in fact, if bribes could drive an economy, Africa would be very fast. That's it. If bribes could drive an economy, would be very, very far. But the thing is, at the end of the day, they don't drive any economy. Are there regions where flying trucks are banned completely? Not that I know of. Not that I know of, because here in Kenya, basically we invented the flying trucks, so they're not banned here. But I don't think that basically in fact there's no car that is banned anywhere in Africa. In Africa, we accept everything as it comes, right? Because it's a privilege. At the end of the day, if you're given something it's like giving a child a candy. We love it because we didn't make it at the end of the day. So basically, there's no vehicle that is banned in Africa. You can use any vehicle. So flying trucks they are everywhere. These proboxes that you see here, these family sedans, they overspeed almost in every road in Africa. There's no there's no no to that. It's always a yes, yes. Okay. I'm sure the drivers are high during transportation. Of course, of course, of course. You can't drive at 150 kilometers per hour and be sober. I mean, that can't work. And if you've ever seen that cat, bro, that cat gives you a certain stimulation, bro. Something. The stimulation is it's a different kind of stimulation, one that is not felt in other countries. So these drivers, they are usually high and they consume what they are carrying, which is mostly the cat, right? And if they consume it, at the end of that's why they drive like maniacs. They drive like there's no tomorrow. They drive like they have those 9 lives. They drive like they don't care. Like they don't care about their families. So basically that's it. They are always high. They are always under the influence. Some even drive while drunk, right? And you can imagine driving at 140 kilometers per hour and you're drunk. Do flying trucks ever smuggle things other than cat? They don't just carry cat at the end of the day. They carry other things, but mostly they're not smuggling. They can carry other goods from the farms, because a vehicle like this that you can because a vehicle like this that is on the screen, basically what it's carrying, it's something from the farms, right? So when they are from the farms, they can carry things like like potatoes, tomatoes, So it's not just cat that is carried, they carry other things. So yeah. Yeah, and about the drivers being high, that's a no, that's it. Like look at this picture here. Imagine the speed that this driver was going at. Just imagine it. Just picture it. Just picture the speed that this driver was at for this picture to be taken, because it looks like this photo looks like the driver was almost at 160 kilometers per hour, and you can imagine this is a pedestrian road, and the vehicle is also kind of overloaded. But hey, welcome to Africa. Do drivers modify their engines or suspensions? They basically modify everything. They even some proboxes. I've heard that a car like this, a probox fitted with a turbo. Basically, these vehicles don't come with turbochargers, but they are some are fitted, some are modified to have turbos. Yeah, so you can imagine that a car that didn't come with a turbo originally, like mechanics find a way to fit a turbo inside that vehicle so that it can fly basically, right? Someone is calling me. Okay. I just also want to share that I am seeing more African people in my neighborhood. Yeah, I mean that basically goes to my stories of immigration, and we know that Africans love being illegal immigrants. Are you sure those people that you're seeing there are illegals, or are they illegals? Do you have illegal Africans, or are they just, do they have the correct papers? Uh-huh. I also want, okay, and there's also a time where I was driving back at home, to my home inside our village are not that big. Bro, that's the norm. That's what I'm talking about. That's the norm. Them overtaking like that. You haven't seen anything yet. Like imagine, just imagine that one driver, but imagine that imagine you have that one driver in your country. Now imagine our country, every driver is that driver. Every person on the road is constantly racing to overtake you. Sometimes people are overtaking each other and they're not even in a hurry, right? Just imagine it. Imagine that one driver. We have them here, like everywhere you look. It's that every time in fact, every time I'm on the road, there's always people overtaking, and sometimes they're not even in a hurry. I guess they just love the adrenaline. I guess that's why we call them adrenaline junkies. uh okay, and there's also a time, okay, so what he did was very dangerous. He's driving a 2014 Toyota Vios sedan, and I'm driving a 2010 Mitsubishi L200 Triton at that time. Wow. I mean, just imagine if a Pro box like it's a family sedan, right? And it's driven at those speeds here in Africa. When they come to your country, they'll obviously do the same. They'll obviously do what they do here, right? They'll obviously, I mean, it's just our colonial mindset, basically. It's just our colonial mindset, because it's like I said, when you give a child a candy, cars are like candies to us. We love them so much. That's why you can find someone racing with a car that is a scrap. It's basically scrap, and a person is trying to race it on the road. It's because we didn't invent these things at the end of the day. They were brought to us by the Mzungu, who's the white man. So we value them so much, and we try to race. We try to race with basically cars that are not even made, are not made to go that fast. That's why you see this family sedan moving at those high speeds. That's why you see this car moving at those high speeds. At the end of the day, it's basically our colonial mindset. I'm sorry to say, but it's a fact. Basically our colonial mindset. Colonial mindset. Have any regions tried to ban flying trucks outright? That is something that will never happen. They will never be banned, because if how can they be banned and they're paying bribes? And if bribes rule their land, then basically they will never be banned. Banning them will remain a fantasy. Banning them will remain a far-fetched dream, because people have tried to demonstrate about this over these cars. In fact, when these cars have accidents, people ban them. Let's say I've seen a lot of cases where these cars, let's say they hit someone, right? And after they hit someone, they also do an accident. The first thing that the people do, they come out and burn those vehicles. And after burning them, they try and demonstrate. But the police don't do anything. Because why? Because they have the money, they pay the bribes. So they never get banned. And as I was telling you, if you have the money here, you rule the road. I have to get ready for DR appointment. It was really good to talk to you again. By the way, what's your name? My name is Robert. Thank you so much. Six the gadget, six at the gadget. Thank you so much. My name is Robert, and I'm from Nairobi. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you have a great day. Are there any women flying truck drivers at all? Yeah, we have. Nah, I don't think I haven't seen any woman driving like this. You know, women are very cautious. I guess even in their natural state, women are very cautious. So it's very hard for you to come across a woman driver driving these trucks at that high speed. It's very rare. It's very rare to find a woman doing that. But but these roads are basically ruled by men. It's men that drive these vehicles at those crazy speeds. So women very hard to find. It's very hard to find because these vehicles actually need people who are very crazy, who are crazy enough to risk their lives, people who don't care about tomorrow. Those are the kinds of drivers that drive these vehicles. Basically, that's the summary. People who basically don't care about their lives, but at the end of the day, they do make money. This industry of flying trucks, it's a very lucrative. It's a very lucrative industry because obviously you have to get paid a lot of money to be risking your life, right? So it's a very lucrative industry, and even many drivers tend to compete, to get these jobs, and that's why you never find a vehicle like this without a co-driver. Because as I mentioned before, if you want to be a driver of these flying trucks in Africa, first of all you have to go through the initiation, right, which is being a co-driver for a minimum of 5 years. That's it. That's the simple fact. um if it's time to take okay if it's the time to take eh? If it's time to take to the airport they want to save, they better start their journey early, giving themselves enough time to arrive at the airport on time. Yeah, but you don't want to arrive at the airport also too early, right? You just want to be there at the correct time, right? Because you don't want your product to be ruined. Because remember, at the end of the day, people want this thing as fresh as it was when it came from the farms, and that's why, remember, they don't use refrigeration trucks are never used. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They just want to drive fast and they want to be on time. That's the most important thing. Arriving on time and driving fast so that the product arrives as fresh as it was on the farm. So basically, any excuse that you can think when it comes to these drivers, that's the correct assumption. Any excuse. Like when you're saying that why do they drive so fast? It's because they have to do it. They have to make sure that the product arrives as fast as possible, as fresh as possible. If you're asking if they want to go to the airport and and why they should like start their journey early, bro, they still have to get there on time. They don't want to get there too early. They have to get there at the perfect time, which is not too early and not too late. Remember that. Okay. Insurance cover for okay. Why does the okay why sorry, why does the video highlight why does the video highlight that differs from the okay, what was that? Do they sell perishable ones? Pardon? Do they sell the perishable ones? What does that mean? Perishable ones, how? I don't get that question. But anyway, when it comes to insurance, these vehicles are also the insurance cover, you can imagine, it's very expensive, right? It's very expensive. In fact, it's crazy expensive because for insurance company to give you a car that they know that will be a wreck in a few years, the insurance has to be very expensive. Do they sell their perishable ones, the ones that come later, the ones that come late? Oh, he's asking, do they sell the cat that arrives late, the one that is a bit ruined? No, they don't sell it. You see, when a cat driver is late, and let's say they arrive with their goods a bit, a bit rotten, the first thing is that they'll have to accept that loss, and the driver will actually they'll have to be, you see, that loss they'll have to pay it with their salary. So basically, let's say if the owner or the farmer actually got, maybe let's say, a loss of, let's say, $200, the driver will have to pay for it. They'll have to be, that $200 will be cut from their salary. So that's why these drivers drive so fast, because they also want to maintain their salaries, right? They have to make sure that they deliver their goods on time, and by delivering their goods on time, at least they save their salaries. They make sure that they get their pay correctly. That's why because when they are driving that fast, it's not just the cut that is on the line. It's also the driver's work or the driver's job that is on the line. That's why they drive so fast. It's not just one thing on the line. Anyway, I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for everyone that tuned in. At least today we stayed over over an hour. If we didn't, then there's always next time. Thank you so much for all those that tuned in. My name is Afrikleo, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.